Have you ever had the feeling of being so close to winning something, and suddenly everything crumbles? Is there a hidden enemy within you? This video has appeared to you for a reason. The truth that I will reveal can transform your life. It may seem crazy, but often the greatest saboteur of your life lives within your own mind. It is a silent, dark part that knows you better than anyone. She knows exactly where to reach you. And the worst, it disguises themselves with protection, security, logic. How many times have you been about to take an important step, to realize a dream, to get out of your comfort zone, and you felt an invisible strength pulling you back? That inner voice that says, maybe now isn't the moment. What if it goes wrong? You're not good enough. This voice is not your enemy, but it is not your ally either. She is the dark side of your mind. And if you do not learn to recognize it, it will continue to sabotage every opportunity for growth, love, success, and freedom that appears in your way. Have you ever wondered why you repeat the same mistakes? Why do you always attract the same kind of relationship? Why escape situations that could raise you? All of this has a deep explanation, and it is rooted in unconscious patterns you carry from childhood, from trauma you don't even remember, but which shaped the way you see the world, and especially how you see yourself. The name of this is self-sabotage, and it doesn't happen for weakness, lack of faith, or bad luck. Auto-sabotage is an unconscious protection strategy. Your mind tries to protect you from pain, but for that, it also protects you from fulfillment. You start getting used to suffering with emotional scarcity. You create an inner world where fear is more comfortable than being happy. Most people have no idea they are sabotaging. They believe they are making conscious decisions when they are actually being controlled by invisible schedules, emotional inheritances, limiting beliefs, poorly resolved trauma, and especially the psychological shadow, as Carl Jung called. This hidden side of mind keeps everything you denied about yourself: fear, anger, shame, insecurity, rejection, feelings you have learned to hide but never cease to exist. They continue there, acting behind the scenes, pulling the ropes of their behavior, and the more you try to ignore, the stronger it becomes. The frightening thing is that this mechanism does not want your evil. He wants to protect you from the pain you felt before. The problem is that to avoid this pain, it also prevents you from living grandiose things. The promotion at work, the new relationship, the personal project, the change of life. All of this requires you to face your fear. And your dark side doesn't want that. He prefers you to stay exactly where it is. But what if I told you that this enemy can become your greatest ally? That the shadow, when understood, can free you from all that today imprisons you. That the dark side of the mind is not the end, but the beginning of a deep journey of transformation. If you feel you have something inside you locking your way, so keep watching. Because what I will reveal you now will change the way you see yourself and everything that prevents you from living the life you really deserve. Because what I will reveal you now will change the way you see yourself and everything that prevents you from living the life you really deserve. The truth is that no one teaches us to deal with the mind, much less with her parts that hide pain, insecurity, and fear. You grow up listening that you need to be strong, positive, resilient, but no one talks about the emptiness you feel when everything seems to go wrong for no reason. No one prepares you for the moments when you boycotted yourself, not knowing why. And then you start to blame yourself, to think the problem is you, that you are weak, lazy, without focus. But what is happening within you is much deeper than that. There is an unconscious programming sabotaging your steps. And until you bring it to light, you will continue to walk in circles. You may have grown up listening that it was not good enough, that needed to strive twice to be accepted. Perhaps it has been rejected, criticized, or ignored by those who should welcome you. These experiences left marks, and these brands have become internal commands. I can't make a mistake. I need to please. It is better not to try. Now, every time an opportunity appears, your mind digs old memories. It activates these commands as an alarm. Be careful, this can hurt. And you retreat. Gives up before trying. If saboteur, not for lack of will, but for excess fear. Fear of reliving the pain. Fear of leaving the known zone, even if it is limited. And you wonder, why and I always break? Why do you look like my life is stuck? The answer may be in this part of the mind that you have not looked with carefully, conscientious. And that's why this video is so important. Because understanding your mind is the first step to break free of it. When you recognize the mechanisms of self-sabotage, you gain power. Power to choose different. Power to rewrite your story. Power to stop repeating patterns and finally live the life you came to live. If this is making sense to you, I want to ask you something now. Right here in the comments, I recognize my shadow and I'm ready to turn it. This simple gesture already activates an internal movement of change. It is a way of declaring yourself that you are ready to stop escaping your own truth. You are not alone on this journey. And what comes next will show you why recognizing this dark side is the beginning of your light. Many people are trapped in self-sabotage cycles and do not even notice whenever something good is about to happen. A blockade, a question, an excuse. You may be living just that now. That feeling that life could be flowing, but for some invisible reason, everything wages. Things begin to go wrong in the last second. Enthusiasm becomes fear. The action becomes paralysis. And you start wondering if there's nothing wrong with you. You may feel that it is not good enough, or that does not deserve to be happy. This is no coincidence. This is a pattern, an invisible cycle that repeats itself even when everything seemed to be aligned. You make plans, set goals, feel that this time it will work. But when it's time to act, something inside you hesitates. It is as if your mind pulled the handbrake just as you should accelerate. And do you know what is scarier? This happens subtly. You do not always realize that you are sabotaging. Sometimes it seems that it is the fate acting against you. Sometimes you blame the world, the people, the universe, God, but deep down, a part of yours knows it's not just what happens outside, that's what happens inside. This is what your unconscious mind is doing to you, often to protect you from pain, judgment, failure, but at the same time, preventing you from experiencing freedom, abundance, love, and fulfillment. This silent sabotage comes from afar. It forms itself when we are still children, and we learn in a distorted way that certain things are dangerous, to show too much, to want too much, to dream too loud, to stand out, to be vulnerable. Because one day you tried to do this, and you were rejected, ignored, humiliated, or abandoned, and at that moment your mind created armor. She learned to protect you not with courage, but with limitation. So now, when you are about to change your life, this old programming comes into action. As an automatic system, it activates mechanisms to keep you in the same place. You say, procrastinators, make excuses, doubt yourself. You think, I don't think I'm ready. Maybe it's not for me. I'll wait a little longer. But the truth is that you are ready. What is not ready is your subconscious. He still believes that changing is dangerous. And it hurts. Because rationally, you know you want to evolve. You feel you have a greater purpose, a spiritual mission, something grand waiting for you. But emotionally, something within you is still stuck to the pain of the past. Sometimes this pain comes in the form of low self-esteem, fear of abandonment, feeling of inadequacy. Other times it appears as anxiety, self-criticism, constant comparison with others. All of this are symptoms of a wounded mind, a tired spirit, a soul asking for healing. Have you noticed how sometimes even blessings scare? When everything is going too well, that thought comes, this won't last. Something will go wrong. This is too good to be true. This is the voice of your shadow. It is she who whispers in your ear when you're about to take the next step. It is she who convinces you to go back to the comfort zone, that same zone where you no longer fit, but it still seems safer than the unknown. But this security is a prison, and many people live their entire lives within this invisible cell, decorating the walls, calling home, without realizing that they are sabotaging, limiting themselves, decreasing. And all this not to face the pain of a poorly resolved past or the fear of a future that requires courage. Have you ever felt that you are living a life in half? What is something within you that has not yet been activated? That there is a force calling you to something bigger, but you don't know how to answer? This is not illusion. This is your spirit trying to emerge behind the self-sabotage layers. It is its essence asking for space, asking for freedom, and it will only surge go when you stop fighting yourself and start understanding the mechanisms of your mind. Because self-sabotage is not the problem itself, it is the symptom. The real problem is deeper. It is in the way you relate to yourself, with your story, with their pains, with your beliefs. As long as you keep believing you don't deserve it, you can't, that you are not capable, you will continue to recreate the same situations, the same results, the same frustrations. And here comes something deep. It's not just about gaining things. It's about allowing you to be who you are, without fear, without guilt, without shame. When you sabotage yourself, you are denying your own light. You are hiding your talents, your ideas, your voice. You are experiencing a reduced version of yourself, not to disturb, not to be rejected, not to be disappointed. But what is the price of this? How many opportunities have you lost? How many times have you silenced when you wanted to scream? How many times has you accepted less than you deserved? How many times did you hide from the world, pretending to be okay? Auto-sabotage is an emotional addiction, a cycle that needs to be broken, and it begins with consciousness. Only when you recognize this pattern can you start transforming it. It's no use just wanting to change your life. You need to change your identity. You need to see yourself differently. You need to stop being that version that only survives and start being that version that really lives. If you have gotten here, it already says a lot about your soul. You are looking for answers. You feel that there is something beyond what your eyes see. And you are right. Yes, there is. There is an internal universe waiting to be unraveled. And understanding your internal sabotages is the first step in releasing this universe. Now, I want to actively invite you to participate in this journey, because this cannot be a passive experience. You need to declare with intention that you are ready to change this cycle. So, comments down here, I recognize my standards and I'm ready to break free. Or, if you felt something different during this video, write, my soul awakened. I see my shadow. These phrases activate a new code within you, and they also help this video reach more people who are stuck in the same cycles. So, leave your comment now. I read them all carefully. You are not alone, and everything that comes next will make even more sense. And it is precisely at this point on our journey that the deep knowledge of Carl Jung comes in. You may have heard of him. Jung was one of the greatest names in deep psychology, an explorer of the human soul, someone who dedicated his life to understanding the mazes of the unconscious. But what differentiates Jung from other scholars is that he went beyond traditional science. He not only analyzed behaviors, he deciphered symbols, dreams, archetypes, hidden patterns of the psyche. He touched where few dare to play, in the dark territory of his mind, where he dwells what he called shadow. For Jung, the shadow is all that you hide from yourself. It is the hidden part of your unconscious mind, formed by trauma, fears, shame, rejections, repressed impulses, unconnected desires, and buried memories. But make no mistake, just because you hid this part, it doesn't mean it disappeared. On the contrary, The shadow acts behind the scenes. It influences your choices, your behavior, your relationships, your emotional reactions. It shapes your reality from all that you tried to deny. Think of the shadow as an invisible side of your spiritual mind, an emotional echo that pursues you even when you think you have overcome certain things. It is that part that appears when you are rejected and feels a pain that seems bigger than it should. When you sabotage yourself and then blame yourself even without understanding why. When you feel envy, anger, jealousy or fear and try to pretend it's okay, but inside, it's in conflict. This internal conflict is the shadow manifesting itself. Jung said that the process of individuation, the path towards its true self, necessarily goes through this encounter with the shadow. There is no evolution without confrontation. There is no spiritual awakening without inner dive. And that, yes, it can be scary, because facing your shadow means looking at your parts that you preferred to keep hidden. It means accepting that there are darkness within you, and that the light you seek so much will only be full when you are able to illuminate what you fear today. And maybe now you start to understand why so many people are sabotaged. It's not that they don't want to change, it's just that they are afraid of what they will find when they finally look at each other. Most people spend their entire lives trying to fit, please others, follow standards, all to avoid this encounter with their inner truth, because the truth frees it, but before free, she confronts. What Jung teaches us is that ignoring the shadow does not make it disappear. On the contrary, what you repress becomes increasingly powerful, and this repressed force begins to govern his life unconsciously. You don't notice, but she's there. It is she who makes you repeat the same kind of toxic relationship. It is she who keeps you from trusting yourself. It is she who leads you to have anxiety crises for no apparent reason. Because the more you try to be perfect, the more you suffocate what is human in you, and to suffocate humanity is to stifle the soul. Jung was clear in saying, until you make the unconscious conscious, he will direct your life and you will call it fate. This phrase is one of the greatest spiritual alerts you can receive. She reminds us that much of what you think is unlucky, karma, or divine punishment is actually a reflection of what is hidden in you. The unconscious is the stage where they're internal battle staging, and until you bring light to this stage, you will continue to be a spectator of your own story. But there is something even deeper in all this. Jung believed that the shadow is not just a task of darkness. She also keeps lost treasures, forgotten potentials, parts of yours that were suffocated by fear but could transform your life. Creativity, intuition, inner strength, true spirituality. All of this may be hidden within your shadow. And when you start welcoming it instead of fighting it, you start recovering your dormant parts. This is why so many people feel a spiritual call when it begins to dive into self-knowledge. Because when you look at the shadow, you begin to realize that there is something beyond pain. There is purpose, there is healing, there is light. But it can only be accessed when you pass the dark night of the soul, when you allow yourself to cross the dark territories of mind with courage, presence, and compassion. And here is a key point. Jung did not see the shadow as something that needed to be eliminated. He said the shadow needed to be integrated. You are not here to eliminate your defects, but to understand them, to transform what is unconscious into consciousness, to unite opposites within you, to become whole. Because spirituality is not about ascending to heaven ignoring the earth. It is about learning to walk firmly between light and darkness, with open heart and mind awakens. Most people seeking spiritual awakening are actually running away from pain. But the real awakening begins when you stop fleeing. When you accept to look inside, even when what you see is not beautiful or enlightened. Because only then do you find that darkness is also part of the process. that it has a function, that she keeps messages, that she prepares the terrain for the birth of a new version of her. And this is where you begin to realize that self-sabotage is just a symptom of something deeper, that there is a conflict between your conscious self, which wants to evolve, and your unconscious self, who wants to keep you safe. Jung shows us that this conflict can only be resolved when these two sides begin to talk. When you create internal space to dialogue with your own shadow, when you stop judging yourself and you begin to observe yourself with curiosity and compassion. The process is not easy. It can hurt. It can bring memories that you preferred to forget. You can destabilize your certainties, but that's exactly the way. Emotional healing, spiritual awakening, true transformation. All of this requires you to go down to the depths of your mind to rescue your parts that were left behind. Because only those who have the courage to visit their darkness can sustain the light itself. If this is making sense to you, if you feel that this message has touched you in any way, write here in the comments, "I recognize my shadow and I'm ready to integrate it." Or if you want something even more direct, comments, "My healing starts now." These words activate deep internal movements and also help this content reach more people who are ready for this transformation. Sabotage comes from our own mind. It is not external, not an enemy outside. It is an internal, silent programming built over the years by experiences, memories, trauma, and conditioning. The most impressive, and at the same time more painful, is to realize that this sabotage is not born of evil but from fear. Fear of failure, yes, but especially fear of success. Yes, fear of working. Fear of what will happen if everything works. Because success, different from what many people imagine, is not just about achievements and applause. Success brings responsibility. Success requires change, requires courage. It requires leaving the version of yourself that you already know. That version that, no matter how limited, it still seems safer than the unknown. The mind prefers the known, even if the known is pain. Even if the known is scarcity, suffering, rejection, or loneliness, the unconscious mind works on standards. It does not distinguish what is good or bad. It just recognizes what is familiar. And if you grew up in an emotionally unstable environment with absences, charges, or abandonment, there is a great chance that your mind has associated pain with security. It may seem contradictory, but to the unconscious, what is familiar is what is safe. So when you start creating a new reality, when you decide to break with the old standards and get closer to your true power, this unconscious mind lights the alert. She says, "This is not safe. This is not what we know." And this is where sabotage begins. It appears subtly. You feel sleepy when you should be motivated. He feels doubts when he was already sure. Get into relationships that look like a replay of everything you have ever lived. Projects start and don't end. Feels guilty for wanting more. Feel ashamed to stand out. Auto-sabotage is not always a great collapse. Sometimes it comes in the form of procrastination, sometimes in the form of anxiety. Other times, she assumes the form of paralyzing perfectionism, which makes you postpone everything until you feel that you are ready. But this one never comes. And if you don't realize that this is a mechanism of your shadow, you start to believe that something is wrong with you, that you are not disciplined enough, that lack faith, that strength is lacking, and it begins to compare with others without understanding that each person carries a completely different inner world. You are not behind. You are not late. You are only attached to a mental structure that taught you how to hide from your own light. The fear of success is as real as the fear of failure, because true success requires you to be seen, to assume yourself, to position yourself, that you say yes to your mission, your spirituality, to your truth. And that scares, because being seen also means exposing yourself. And if exposing means to risk being criticized, rejected, judged, So often you prefer to get small, prefer the middle path, prefers warm life, because the fear of being wounded again is greater than the desire to be happy. But the life you want to live is on the other side of fear. And to cross this fear, it takes emotional courage. It takes spiritual maturity. You must understand that your mind is not your enemy, but it is not a reliable guide when it is on autopilot. The mind needs to be re-educated. It needs to be confronted with love. It needs to be seen with compassion, but also firmly. This is why so many people begin processes of self-knowledge and yet continue to sabotage, because they are still trying to change the outside world without accessing the internal roots. You can make positive statements, you can see, you can have plans, goals, strategies, but if deep down you still believe it is not worthy, that it is not deserving, that it is not capable, its reality will always reflect this unconscious belief. It's like planting flowers on a still poisoned soil. The garden never flourishes completely, and here is one of the most important truths you can hear today. The pain you feel is not the problem. The problem is attachment to pain. It is the custom of living in suffering. It is addiction to negative emotional patterns. And yes, it exists. Emotional addiction is real. Some people are so used to living in chaos that when things start to work, they feel discomfort. They start creating problems where they don't exist. Unconsciously, they pull back the old narrative because it is known, because she is safe. The unconscious mind is powerful. She commands about 95% of her decisions. And if you are not awake, conscious, present, you will spend your whole life being commanded by a program that was not even you created. She was formed by childhood experiences, for words she heard, for trauma she lived, for fears she absorbed. And now she's there operating quietly, saying, "Don't go, don't try, don't risk, don't change." But you feel, don't you, a different inner voice, an intuition, a call, something inside you saying it's time to break this cycle, that you were not born to live limited with fear, shrunken, that there is a spiritual mission waiting for you, that your soul is tired of living in half. This feeling is not imagination. He is real. He is his essence trying to wake up. And she won't stop knocking on your door. The more you ignore this call, the more life begins to push you. Relationships fall apart. Opportunities move away. Situations are repeated. Because the universe wants you to see, that you understand, that you stop running away and finally start confronting this internal programming that is sabotaging its evolution. But for that, you need courage. Not the courage to face the world, but to face yourself. To look inside and admit that there are parts of yours that you have not healed yet, that there are standards that need to be dissolved, that there are stories that need to be rewritten, and that doesn't happen from the outside in. True transformation is an internal movement. It is a silent, intimate, spiritual decision. You can continue to repeat the same story for more years, or you can now start creating a new narrative. The choice is yours. But she needs to be accompanied by presence, consciousness, and practice. It is no use just understanding intellectually. You have to feel. It is necessary to live this process. We need to allow the pain to come to light, not to destroy you, but to free you. If you felt this part of the video spoke directly to you, I want you to write here in the comments, "I libero the pain and choose my new story." Or if you want something more direct and impactful, it comments, "The self-sabotage doesn't command me anymore." These statements are powerful. They create movement. They say to your unconscious mind that you are taking control. How many opportunities did you leave for fear? How many doors opened in front of you and you just didn't come in? How many times has the universe put people, signs, ways, and you looked away, hesitated, waited a little longer, telling yourself that it wasn't the time yet? How many times have you wanted to deeply live something new, a more conscious love, a work with purpose? a life more connected with your spirituality, and yet, did you get it when you felt it was within your reach? You may not even realize clearly, but this is repeated. It is cyclical. You feel the thrust of change, feel the call, start to take the first steps, and then the old fear returns. The fear of not being enough, the fear of going wrong, the fear of being judged, and above all, the fear of discovering that you are much more than you have learned to believe. Because finding out this also means leaving behind who you went here. And it hurts. It hurts to get out of the emotional comfort zone, even when this zone is loaded with pain and frustration. How many times have you given up before you even tried? How many ideas, dreams, and projects have you buried in the same place where you keep the justifications you use not to move? You may not even realize that you have been living a life on the sidelines of what you really could experience. A partially erased existence, a path you don't walk, just survive. Because deep down, you have convinced yourself that you can't, you don't deserve it, that you are in prison. But the question that needs to be asked, and maybe you have been avoiding for a long time, is, are you living the life you have chosen, or what your fear has allowed you to live? When you silence for a few seconds, when you look honestly into you, this question echoes. Because you know there is something within you want to wake up, something that is suffocated, a part of yours that is already tired of repeating the same standards, living relationships that drain your energy, working on something that does not have your soul, pretending that everything is okay when it is not. This part of yours is begging for change. But change requires responsibility, and responsibility requires emotional maturity. It requires you to assume your own life. You are no longer that helpless child who had to protect himself from an unstable world. But your mind still acts as if it were. She still defends herself with the same mechanisms, avoiding, postponing, running away, denying, sabotaging. And every time you give up something important to you, every time you say no to an opportunity that your heart has asked for yes, you are feeding this cycle. And this cycle is strengthened in repetition. How many times have you felt you were in the wrong place, with the wrong person, doing something that has nothing to do with your essence? And yet, he continued there, trying to be convinced that it was that life is like this, that suffering is normal, that joy is rare, that love is difficult, that living lightly is a fantasy. How many lies have you told yourself just so you don't have to confront the truth that pulsates in your chest every day? And perhaps the most painful of all this is to realize that you already knew. Deep down, you always knew. I knew it deserved more, that could more, that there was something beyond, but you didn't feel prepared, and instead of the action, you chose the postponement. Instead of risk, you chose the comfort zone. In place of the truth, you chose the silence. Instead of courage, you chose to survive. But this choice, which seems safe in the short term, charges a very high price over time. Because what you do not live today becomes regret tomorrow. And regret is a pain that does not disappear over time. It accumulates. It becomes a weight on the shoulders, a stiffness in the body, a knot in the throat, a constant feeling that life is going through, and you are still expecting the right time. But what is the right time? Who defines it? How much more time will you wait until you decide if you put it first? Until deciding to honor your soul, your talents, your way. You don't have to be ready. You need to be willing. Willing to be afraid and yet follow. Willing to fall and yet get up. Willing to confront your parts you have been ignoring for years. Because fear will always exist. The doubt will always appear. But if you continue to allow these voices to determine your steps, you will never leave the place. You will continue to watch your life happen outside the window, as if you were a viewer of yourself. But you didn't come for it. You came to be a protagonist. You came to live with purpose, to heal, to teach, to transform. And none of this happens while you are hiding behind the excuses. And here I want to make you a sincere invitation, not to change everything at once, not to make you jump without looking, but for you to start. Start looking inside. Start by recognizing that there are pains that still control you. Start by admitting that you have abandoned yourself out of fear. Start by saying enough to this cycle of emotional and spiritual self-sabotage. Have you noticed how your energy changes when you speak your truth? How do your body relax when you stop pretending? How is your intuition more clearly when you really hear yourself? All of this is a sign that healing is near. Your soul is already in motion. And so you are here, listening to this message. This is not by chance. Nothing is by chance. How many times have you wondered if you are on the right track? How many times have you begged for a signal? Because that is the sign. The sign that it's time to go back to you, to assume your journey, to break with the old man, to rewrite your story with conscience, love, and presence. You no longer need to hide. No more need to be diminished. The life you want to live is available. She has always been, but it requires you to position yourself that you say yes with the whole soul. If this message touched you, if at some point you felt like I was talking exactly to you, I want you to write here in the comments, I choose to live with truth. Or, if you felt something deeper, comments, enough surviving, I came to live. These words have strength. They activate something inside you. They move energy. They communicate to the universe that you are ready to leave the autopilot. So write, declares, let your soul speak. What comes below will further deepen this dive. And I will follow here with you, step by step, guiding you for this journey of spiritual awakening, self-knowledge, and emotional healing. Because now that you have started to see yourself more clearly, there is no way to come back. Transformation is inevitable, and she started. The mind is like a maze made of mirrors. You come in believing that you are seeing reality, but in fact you are just seeing distorted reflexes of your past. Each decision, every thought, every judgment you do today is influenced by emotional memories that have been trapped in parts of you that have never been illuminated. And the most curious thing is that you believe you are acting freedom, believes you are choosing consciously, but most of the time you are just reacting to old images that your mind reproduces tirelessly. It's like walking through this blindfolded maze. You extend your hand thinking you will play something new, but always end up touching the same point. Because the unconscious is predictable, he repeats. It reconstructs the same pain in new scenarios, with new people, just to keep you in the known. And you see yourself there, stuck in this cycle, confusing reflection with truth, mirror with way. Try to imagine now that you're running through an open field, your eyes turned to the horizon. You want to go ahead, you want to reach something, you feel that there is an energy of movement, expansion, but suddenly you realize that your feet are stuck by invisible currents. You don't understand. It's striving, it's dedicated, it's doing everything right. But something pulls you back, holds you, limits you, and the more strength you do, the more tired you feel. The feeling is of spiritual exhaustion, because the problem is not what is before you. This is what is behind. That's what you still carry, even without realizing it. These invisible currents are the beliefs you have absorbed without question. These are the unused emotions. They are the silent traumas. It is the unconscious pacts you made with the pain. Pacts like, I can't shine because it will bother others, or I don't deserve the being happy because I was always rejected, or if I am myself, they will leave me. These pacts were not made with words but with experiences. And they shape the invisible structure of your mind. You don't see, but you feel. You don't understand, but repeat. You don't remember, but relive. It is as if a part of yours is frozen in time, attached to the scene of a past that still pulsates inside your energy body. And this part, this injured child, this fragment of your soul, keeps trying to protect you, as if to say, Don't go this way, it seems dangerous. But what seems dangerous to this wounded part is precisely what could free you. Imagine now that you are in a dense forest, without maps, without visible trails. You walk between tall trees, broken branches, and unknown sounds. At first, she is afraid, because everything looks dark, strange, threatening. But over time, your eyes fit. You start to see ways where before I only saw confusion. It begins to realize that the forest was not a place of punishment, but a field of initiation. She was there not to scare you, but to transform you. The shadow works just like that. It puts you in uncomfortable emotional environments, not to destroy you, but to reveal you. When you face your shadows with courage, it begins to see light where there was only darkness before. It begins to realize that each challenge was an invitation to expansion, that every pain was a call from the soul, that each block was a chance of healing. But if you get back in front of the forest, if you decide that it is better not to feel, not dive, not lose yourself, then you will never find out what's on the other side, because only those who cross the unknown who find the true self. And this true self does not build for certainty. He builds himself with delivery, with presence, with listening. Think about a butterfly now. Before flying, she needs to get rid of completely. Inside the cocoon, the caterpillar melts. She stops being who she was, literally, for later gradually reorganizing in something completely new. And this is symbolic, because you also need to dissolve in some parts. You need to let your version that was built in fear, with scarcity, with pain. You need to allow the soul process to happen, even if it seems for some time that you are lost. Because this sense of loss, confusion, disorientation, it's just a sign that something new is being born. And while this new one does not organize itself completely, you will hear internal voices trying to pull you back to the old one. These are emotional memories wanting to keep control. They are shadows testing their firmness. These are patterns trying to survive. And right now, more than ever, you need to remember that you are in the process. That is crossing. That is not arrested, is in transition. Have you seen how the tides behave? Before collecting, the sea advances. Before retreating, he shakes. And many times, that's exactly how it happens inside you. You feel emotional turbulence, restlessness, impatience, as if something were out of place. But this is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of movement. It is a sign that the energy field is being restructured. What was fixed is being dissolved. What was hidden is coming to light. Consciousness is being activated. And at that moment, instead of fighting what you feel, the way is different. It is welcoming. It is observing. It is to name. Because when you name your shadows, they lose power. When you put light on what was unconscious, you break the cycle. When you look with love to your pain, it becomes wisdom. Nothing you lived was in vain. No pain was by chance. Each experience brought with it a lesson, a key, a part of yours that needed to be rescued. And now you are here, looking at all this more mature, because the time has come. It's time to get out of the maze of mirrors. The time has come to take the invisible currents. The time has come to walk through the forest without fear. If this made sense to you, if any image I brought here activated something inside you, comments down here, I choose to cross the forest. Or if you felt that this moment was like a mirror of your own life, writes, I see the invisible chains and choose to break free. These sentences are like seeds. When you write, you plant. And what you plant with conscience blooms. So far, you have recognized that there is an invisible standard, a subtle, hidden, silent force that operates within your mind and, even unintentionally, has kept you stuck in repetitive auto-sabotage cycles. You have already started to see the maze, the chains, the forest, already felt the shadow moving, and maybe for the first time, be courageous enough to ask, what do I do with all this? This is the part where many people give up, because this is where the responsibility to ECE. This is where change is no longer a beautiful idea and becomes a call to action. And that is why this part is so important, because without conscious action, everything you have heard so far become just one more information that your mind will keep and follow with the same standards. The first step to free yourself from self-sabotage is to recognize it. It sounds simple, but it requires radical honesty. It requires you to look with courage. That stops justifying behaviors, which stops blaming the external, that abandon the role of victim. You have to sit with yourself in silence and observe. Where do you always crash? When do you retreat? What fires your fears? What kind of situation active your escape, your self-abandon, your retraction? It is in these moments that the shadow manifests itself. It is not in the great tragedies, it is in everyday life. That's when you get a compliment and feel ashamed. That's when an opportunity comes up and you think it's not ready. That's when someone invites you to something new and you find an excuse. The self-sabotage is subtle, but once you begin to observe it with presence, it loses strength. Because everything that is unconscious gains power by invisibility. What you see, you transform. An essential practice in this process is to write. Not just as outburst, but as an investigation. Take paper and pen and ask yourself, what do I most avoid feeling? When was the last time I sabotaged? What is the story I tell myself to myself that keeps me still? Writing with truth is like opening a portal into the soul. Your answers will surprise you, because when the mind begins to express itself without filter, the truth emerges, and with it comes the power of decision. Another practice that reconnects you with its essence is meditation, but not a meditation to escape reality or to calm the pain. Meditation as listening, as a presence, as self-acceptance. Sit down, close your eyes and ask, what am I not wanting to see? What part of mine do I still reject? What emotion do I avoid? Stay there, in silence. Do not force answers. Just allow your consciousness to expand. Because when you silence external noise, the inner world begins to speak. Also, it is essential to start questioning the absolute truths you carry. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to do with what happened. With every automatic thinking that arises, I can't, this is not for myself. Stop, breathe, ask, is this true, or is it a story that my mind created to protect me? You will realize that many of your certainties are just defense mechanisms. Another powerful practice is the mirror. Yes, the physical mirror. Stay before him. Look at your own eyes and say things you never had the courage to say to yourself. Say, I'm here, I see myself, I welcome, I recognize my pain, but I'm no longer controlled by her. This exercise, as simple as it may seem, active deep parts of the unconscious, because looking in their own eyes with presence is an act of power. And do you know what happens when you start doing this often? The shadow loses strength, not because it disappears, but because you stop fleeing. You start creating a relationship with her, and when you create relationship with something, you bring conscience, and consciousness heals. Another practical way to stop sabotage cycles is to observe your body. The body speaks before the mind. When you are facing an important decision, notice your chest tighten. Does your breath change? Does your hands sweat? Do you feel a knot in your stomach? All of this are nervous system answers based on emotional memories. Learn to listen to your body. It shows you where trauma still exists, and if you hear with love, he also shows you the way home. You can also use the shadow symbol to guide your days. Whenever something irritates you deeply, ask yourself, why does it affect me so much? What does this reveal about me? The shadow manifests a lot through what we projected in others. What we judge in others is almost always what we deny ourselves. The more consciousness you have of this, the lighter your walk will be. Because you stop fighting the world and start dialogue with your own truth. And here is something no one told you. Auto-sabotage is often a love request. When you boycott yourself, what your soul is trying to say is, look at me, see me, listen to me, recognize me. Because behind each saboteur, there is a part of yours that was injured. And this part no longer needs repression. It needs reception. It needs to be rescued with compassion. You don't have to become someone else. You just need to redeem who you have always been before adapting to survive. And that starts with small steps, by small daily choices. Choose to be present. Choose observe. Choose PA use before reacting. Choose listen to your body. Choose to write. Choose ask. Choose breathing with conscience. Cure does not happen at once. It happens spirally. Sometimes you will feel that you are coming back, but in fact, it is coming back deeper. It is revisiting layers. It is reorganizing the inner house. Be kind to the process. Honor each step. Each awareness is already a miracle. If this part of the video has played deeply if you felt that now you have tools to get out of the auto-sabotage cycle, I want you to write here in the comments, I see myself. I choose to act with conscience. Or if you want something even more direct, write, from today, I change my standard. These sentences are more than comments. They are commitments to your journey, are seeds of transformation. They are open portals for a new version of you. You are not broken. As much as life has made you believe it, as much as circumstances, failures, silences, and pains have built this idea within your mind, the truth is different. You are not damaged or lost or late. You are in process, a deep process of reunion, a silent path of return to yourself. And this path is sometimes confusing, because growing spiritually is, most of the time, to undress what was never yours. It is unlearning everything they taught you about who you should be. It is to tear labels, release masks, and return to its essence. You are just learning to really know yourself. Not that image that the world expects, not that persona you built to survive, but your real self, he who feels deeply, who perceives the signs, who presents when something is misleading, who cries for no apparent reason because he carries a spiritual sensitivity that the world does not yet know how to deal with. The one who does not fit in boxes, who seeks the invisible, who feels when the environment is loaded, who hears the intuition whispering even when the mind screams. This process of self-knowledge, emotional healing, and spiritual awakening is not linear. Sometimes you will feel alone. Other times, in turbulence, it will feel light as a feather and the next moment buried by their own emotions. But that does not mean that you are regressing. It means that you are accessing parts of yours that had been hiding for years, perhaps decades. And that is liberating, because when you face your shadow, you discover a hidden force, a power that is not born of perfection, but of truth. This force is not noisy. She doesn't have to prove anything. She doesn't have to convince anyone. She is silent and solid. It springs from the heart. It springs from every moment you choose to act consciously. Each time you say yes to your truth, even tremendous. Each time you choose to be who you are, even in fear. This strength is its awakening essence. It is the light that is born when you stop fighting darkness and start listening to what it has to say. You spent years trying to adjust, trying to fit in molds that do not serve you, trying to be accepted, trying to please, trying to be normal. But your soul did not come to be common. You feel that, don't you? A restlessness. One will of too much, no longer in the material sense, more in the direction of depth, in truth, of meaning. Because your soul doesn't want a life that just works. She wants a life that pulsates, that vibrates, that has soul. And maybe you are discovering it now, that all that sabotaged was not evil. It was fear. It was the unconscious attempt to protect himself from something that has already hurt you. But now you are clearly seeing it is getting up from within. It is opening the eyes of consciousness, and once you see, you can no longer pretend you have not seen. You don't fit back in the old version of yourself. This is the point where the transformation happens. Not when everything is resolved, not when you have already got there, but when you decide that you will continue even without all the answers. When you realize that your presence is enough, that you no longer need to mold yourself to fit. That your light, however intense, is not a problem. She is a blessing. And that their shadows are not monsters either. They are just your parts that need love. You start to see if you notice different. It starts to react differently. What once unbalanced you now teaches you. What before hurt you now heals you. You start looking at life situations with new eyes. And especially, it starts to look at yourself with more tenderness. You no longer judge yourself with such severity. You begin to recognize the small advances. It begins to see beauty in the process, even when he is challenging. And this subtle change reverberates in all areas of your life. You position yourself more clearly. Their relationships become more authentic. You stop emotional crumbs, stop seeking external approval, stop comparing yourself with lives edited on social networks, because now you are nourishing something much more real, a bond with your own soul. You see yourself as an expanding being, and that is liberating, because you understand that you do not need to get anywhere to be worthy, that the value is not in the result, but in the presence, that the merit does not come from outside, but from within, that the universe did not abandon you. He was just waiting for you to come back to yourself. And when you come back, everything changes. Your energy changes, your vibration changes, and what you attract begins to reflect this new frequency. Yes, you will still be afraid. Yes, the self-sabotage will still try to visit you, but now you know it's not at the mercy. Now you are aware. And consciousness is the greatest antidote. It is what transforms shadow into power, pain in wisdom, past in portal. Now you're writing a new story, not the story that others expected from you, but what your soul chose to live. You may not be seeing big external changes yet, but trust. What is changing inside is much greater. The seed you planted is germinating, and like every seed, she needs time, care, silence. The transformation does not scream. She whispers. She dances in the invisible. It grows in the dark, until one day you look at yourself and realize, I'm no longer the same. You start to walk differently, talking differently, to choose different, because now you are connected with your truth. And once you connect with your truth, nothing more satisfies you that you are not aligned with it. You don't accept less, no more abandoned, don't betray yourself anymore. Because he has learned in practice that living a life disconnected from himself is the greatest kind of abandonment. Now you choose. And this is the most spiritual decision you can make. Choose, not as an act of selfishness, but as an act of reconnection. When you choose, you align with the flow of the universe. You stop swimming against the chain and start dancing with it. And then the synchronics appear. The right people arrive. The doors open. Because you finally left the field of resistance and entered the field of permission. If this you heard so far touched your heart, if something inside you was activated, I want to invite you to write here in the comments, I choose to live my truth. Or if you felt this part as a deep call, write, my transformation has begun. These phrases are not just words, they are codes. They say to your mind, your body, and the universe that you are ready. That you commit, that you are not just listening, you are living it. If you stayed with me here, I want to tell you something. This is no little. Few people reach the end of a video like this because few are really ready to face their truth. So if you arrived, it is because your soul is in the process of awakening, and I deeply honor your courage. Enjoy this moment. Subscribe to the channel right now, because every week has content like this, deep, revealing transformers, made for those who, like you, feel that it does not belong to this superficial world and is looking for something much greater. And if you got here, write here in the comments, I arrived until the end because I choose my transformation. This phrase is a commitment to your journey, writes with intention, with presence, and lets her vibrate. Oh, and don't forget to leave your like. This helps this video reach more people who are also ready to get out of the auto-sabotage cycle and wake up to who they really are, and to continue your journey. Now click on the next video that is appearing on the screen. He was chosen especially for you and will take you even deeper into this path of healing, consciousness, and liberation. I see you there. Let's go together.